So welcome everybody to this morning's call with your host, Lisa Chell, that's me, and my guest this morning, Betska Burr, on the merging of science and spirit in the coaching process for permanent positive change. Welcome, Betska.
Thank you, Lisa. Great to be here with you today.
Yeah. Before I fully get into questions, and I want to give a little bit of background, very short, on me, and then how I went into relationship with Betska, because that's a very important part of the story. So as I said, I'm Lisa Chell, and my business is Ultimate Clarity International, and my passion in my business and my purpose is to work with leaders and managers and decision makers on how to lead with both logic and heart. And how that journey began was about 3 years ago. I'm a member of the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, and at one of our Saturday meetings, the guest presenter was Betska Burr. And I sat back, and I was a fairly new speaker at the time, and many other speakers were talking about adding coaching into their business model. And coming from a sports coaching background, I was intrigued, but I really didn't have a concept of what it meant to be a personal coach, business coach, life coach. I mean, it is very, very different from being a sports coach. And so when Betska got up to the front of the room, the first thing that really caught my attention when she started to speak was about how the coaching model has developed over time to merge the mind and the body and spirit, and that it is possible to make permanent positive change. Another thing that really grabbed me about Betska and Coaching and Leadership International, which is the company that she founded and is co-president with her husband John, is that they have developed so many, more than 80 scientifically engineered coaching and leadership methodologies that their coaches have access to in the learning process, encouraging whole brain thinking, intuition, and a lot of innovative processes based on new research in neuroscience and how the mind and the body and the spirit merge together, which we're going to be sharing with you today. Their company is accredited with both of the biggest international coaching agencies, the ICF and the IIC, and they are an award-winning company. And I think what I loved most about Betska is just her absolute love and compassion for all human beings, and her deep, 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 wholehearted desire to make a big difference on this planet. And I knew when I started coaching with Coaching and Leadership International, the very first day that I sat in the classroom with Betska, I knew I was there to heal myself, and I've taken a big journey on that. And I'm also very passionate to help Betska and get the message out there about how we really can do more than just think positive, how we actually can make permanent positive change. So with that, it's really my pleasure to introduce Betska Burr, and I'm going to do it by asking her. I'm going to invite you, Betska, to tell me a little bit and share with the listeners your journey, because I know that you don't just one day step into the title, the Guru Coach. And I know that your clients call you that. You've been dubbed that internationally with the people that you work with in India and around the world. And I know that when your journey began, the processes you did weren't even called coaching. And yet somehow it has developed into this brilliant coaching model. So, please come on and tell the listeners a bit about your story and how you got to be the Guru Coach.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on the release of your new book, Succeeding in Life in Spite of Everything.
Thank you.
And I was thinking about that last night, and I thought, boy, that's my life. Your title is my life. I've had so many things, so many roadblocks in my life, and I guess with the coaching model that I've developed, it has truly helped me to succeed in spite of myself, in spite of everything, in spite of all of those roadblocks. So congratulations to you first and foremost.
Thank you, Betska.
So, the guru coach. As you know, India is famous for spiritual teachers and what they call gurus over there. And since I do travel there approximately 3 times a year, one day some of the students started to call me the guru coach. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting, you know. And then it just spread from there. You know, the students kept telling each other, well, you have to go and hear the guru coach. And even when I'm speaking at conferences there, they don't refer to me as Betska. They'll say, well, the guru coach, please come to the stage to take part in this panel. So after, a while, I thought, well, my gosh, maybe I should own this title. It was given to me by them. So I take it on with no ego, but simply as a kind of like an encouragement for all coaches out there and all men and women and children to realize that they are the guru themselves. They have all the answers inside of them. And yeah, I'm kind of showing them the way on how to do that because, as you know, these coaching models are pretty phenomenal. But so I suspect that they were really honoring me. Since I have over 5,000 client coaching hours, I've kind of stopped counting, really, and over 15,000 self-coaching hours. I've really earned the stripes. But I want your listeners to really know, Lisa, that I think I've truly earned those stripes through my story. My story is a little long here, so bear with me, everyone, but I think you will appreciate where I'm coming from this and perhaps see a similarity in your own life. And before I begin that, I would simply like to thank everyone who has been on my path, my parents, my brother and sisters, my aunts and uncles, my teachers who came along, the students who have come to our school, my wonderful husband, John, my beautiful daughter, Tanya, students like Lisa and all the students, because, while I'm the developer of power coaching with mind kinetics, in reality, because we are, if you take away the illusion, we are in oneness with each other, and therefore, everybody has helped create who I am. Everybody has helped create power coaching with mind kinetics. We'd be teaching in the classroom, in a coach training classroom, and the students would say, well, what if you were to add this question here, Betska or John, and what if we were to do this here? So these students really help mold the whole PCMK process. So I just want to thank them, the trees and the rocks and the flowers and the animals and the fish, everything on the planet for helping me to be who I am today. Now, here's my story. Tanya was born 22 years ago, and shortly after she was born, I experienced tremendous back pain, and my head started to go fuzzy, and I'm an intelligent woman. I've helped start companies, international companies. We took them from a Canadian company, actually, took it from 0 to 45 million in 4 years. And I've been a Canadian diplomat, I've got some brains upstairs here, right? So when I went to see my doctor, I felt that there was something really strange happening to me. She said it was not postpartum depression, but she felt something else might be going on. So she did all the tests, every single test you can imagine, okay? And everything came back negative, negative, negative. And so I thought, all right. I said to her, what do I do? And she said, I don't know. This is a medical doctor, says, I don't know how I can help you, but maybe let's look at the stress in your life. Maybe that has caused some of this. Long and short of it was, she wanted to put me on what we called tranquilizers back then. This is 1991. Today we call them antidepressants or antipsychotics, whatever you want to call them. And I said, no, I was already fuzzy. Why would I want to make my brain more fuzzy? Why would I want to block my reality? So, and I realize that some people need to have those for short term, but, once they get in touch with what's really going on, then oftentimes they don't need that medication anymore once they are balanced inside. with the help of, herbs and that sort of thing. So anyway, I was floundering. I had a very sore back. I could barely get out of a chair. I was 37 years old. Such a painful back. I would, when I would get out of a chair, I had to inch it up because my spine was so sore. Fuzzy brain, and I basically felt bankrupt emotionally, physically, spiritually. And so I just thought, all right, what am I, not financially, thank God, Lisa. The finances were okay. And thank God for that, yes. So I suffered. I went to see homeopaths, naturopaths. I went to the other side of I went to the holistic profession, for health profession for some assistance. I did shiatsu massage, acupuncture, some different types of German modalities. I tried everything. And those things just kind of let me coast. They just let me kind of, I was able to function, but the fuzziness in my brain was still there, and my back was still very, very sore. And 2 years later, that was a long time to suffer with all of this. And I have to assure you all, I looked everywhere for something that would really work for me. And one day, a friend of mine, Ken Jackson, God bless him, he's a fantastic artist in Ontario, London, Ontario, and he called me up and he said, Betska, I just took a workshop from this woman named Jan Sweeney, and I think you should go and talk to her. Have a session with her. She did not call herself a coach back then. She called herself a facilitator of stress elimination. Pretty long title, huh? It's like, today you say, I'm a coach. Yeah, okay, cool. But facilitator of stress elimination, and I think there was something else in that title. But anyway, so I went to see Jan, and first session was great. Second session was better. Actually, by the end of the second session, I could see colors again. So something was switching in my brain and in my body that I was starting to see more lightness through my eyes and in my spirit. And then by the end of the third session, I turned to her and I said, Jan, my God, I'm moving to Ottawa from London, Ontario, and can you teach me how to do this on myself? And she said, sure. For the listener's information, Jan's work was primarily done in the subconscious mind. And we know from all of our research today that 97% of our lives are run by our subconscious mind. And yet, we make those choices. We choose things to do just from a conscious level. But if you start coaching with modalities that take you into your subconscious mind, it's like Christmas or a major holiday every single day of your life, because you're going in and finding out these gifts that your mind patterns, your unconstructive patterns, your positive patterns that you hadn't even thought of, because they're hidden, they're unconscious. So I studied with Jan very little. I had one training session, and then I went back to study the same one 4 times because it was really complex to learn. And then I took another course from her and so on. But when we moved to Ottawa, I basically shut down my speaking business, and I was doing between 60 and 80 gigs a year, and I had a small baby, right? So, I was doing a lot of work on the speaker circuit, and I had launched by that time my second book. Creating Champions was already out, my Canadian bestseller. Flying by the Seat of Your Plans, my second book, was on balancing career and personal life. But here I was speaking all around North America, and I was a fake because I really didn't know how to balance myself, in terms of mind, body, and spirit. I hadn't a clue. But you know what? As an author, I know that we usually write the books for ourselves first to heal ourselves, so that's what I did. I kind of wrote the book for me and so on and so forth. And so in Ottawa, I had shut down my speaking business, my training business, for about 4 years for the reason I just said. Plus, Tanya was, by this stage, she was 4 and 5 years old, and she said to me, Mommy, I don't want to have any more babysitters. I want Mommy to be at home. I want Mommy to be my babysitter. And so that was kind of a very touching thing for me to realize that my daughter really needed me. What am I doing going out and speaking so much to other people when I'm not paying enough attention to my daughter? So what was so great about that was I was able to walk her to school and back, and during the daytime, I would do a lot of research. I spent the next 4 years doing research on why people get fuzzy brains or pain in their back, or why do we act the way we do, this whole behavioral thing. But I went deeper than, the typical left brain stuff. I went into the mind, body, and the spirit. I wanted to find out what was really going on. And every night when John and Tanya were in bed, I would coach myself. I would take these tools that Jan gave me, and I'd remove around 10, 12, or 15 subconscious or unconscious roadblocks to my own success every single evening. I had the methodology to do that from Jan. And lo and behold, my back pain went away after 2.5 to 3 months. It completely disappeared, and it has never come back. So when you and I say, Lisa, that power coaching with mind kinetics is about permanent, positive change, there is, a very important example right then and there. And my mind started to free up, get less foggy, and then the fog simply went away. And because I was coaching myself so much, I basically had a vacuum cleaner to my subconscious mind, right? I wanted to get out all that stuff that was stopping me from being the person I really wanted to be. I wanted to be a great mom. I wanted to be a wonderful wife. I wanted to be a fantastic speaker. I wanted to be a great trainer. And so then, amongst all of this incredible work I was doing, I got down on my hands and knees and I prayed, because I want to back up a little bit. I had been to a National Speakers Association meeting, and I asked my colleagues what I was doing wrong as a trainer and as a speaker, because when I was out on the speaker circuit, about 10% of my audiences were actually changing their behavior. 10%. And I thought, my God, what's wrong with me? So I went to them and I said, please tell me what I'm doing wrong. I cannot take money from people anymore, because companies are spending millions and billions of dollars on coaches and speakers and traders around the world, but the return on investment is only 10%, if that. And my colleagues at the National Speakers Association turned to me and said, Betska, you're not doing anything wrong. That's the norm in the industry. Just accept it. Well, Lisa, I went home to my office and I literally cried. I had tears pouring down my face for humanity, because I thought, if only 10% of people are changing by all of these wonderful speakers and trainers around the world, then these people obviously don't have the right tools. That's it. Bottom line, they don't have the tools. So that's when I got down on my hands and knees and I prayed to God. I said, please, give me something that works. I do not want to go out and work with people anymore. If I'm going to give them junk, I want to give them something that works. So, that old saying, you get what you pray for, right? And I was very grateful, because as I was coaching myself using Jan's tools, sometimes those tools weren't as powerful anymore. So I would pray, and little Rosie had come into my life by then, who was our little Bichon poodle, and she would sit on my lap, and all of a sudden a new methodology would come out. Now remember that as soon as you clean out a lot of your subconscious mind, you're getting rid of all that unconstructive thought, then you have a lot of room in there to stream in brilliant ideas from your superconscious, yeah? And so that's where the development of PCMK really began. And then the pièce de résistance, the main piece here, was that I got initiated by Supreme Master Ching Hai, who is a fully enlightened teacher. And she told us that if we meditate for at least 2.5 hours a day, then we will be able to manifest our gifts. We were created in the eyes of God. The Bible even says, in the Old Testament, we were created in the image of God. So therefore, to me, that means that we are all brilliant. We are all geniuses inside. And so I believed her because I watched her talent spread around the world and what she's done for the world on climate change and her artistry and so on. And she was right. As soon as I got initiated and I started to do very intense meditation, these tools flew out. And of course, Lisa, you already said, since then I've created over 80 of these coaching methodologies. There's no other model like it in the world. And then 37 release methodologies for releasing the emotions in the end. So I guess I have really earned my stripes, and I want the listeners to know why my back pain was so severe and why my brain was fuzzy. Well, I believe I was going into, I was in perimenopause or premenopause, and I know I was young to have it, but so be it, I was. But I think I was also having my spiritual awakening, and through this whole process, I started to remember more of my childhood. It's my perception, that might not be the perception of my siblings, but for me, I had a very rough childhood. I felt I was abused on many levels, emotionally, spiritually, sexually. I was abused by relatives and, the priest in the church and, things like that. So I had quite a lot of trauma going on in my subconscious mind, and I guess, in reality, I wasn't really loving myself because, if I allowed other people to abuse me, then obviously I wasn't loving myself. So as soon as I started to clean out all those negative thoughts around my childhood and forgive my mom, forgive my dad, forgive my uncles and, the priest, and forgive all these people who had done what I would have, what we would normally call damage to a child, I started to get a lot of clarity, and my back pain disappeared after, again, 2.5 to 3 months because I was cleaning out all those negative thoughts. I was blaming myself, blaming my parents, blaming, everybody that was part of my story. But again, we have to realize that we attract these people into our lives. When we're coming down from heaven, into this body, we are, taking on some kind of a purpose. And so today, I thank my mother. I thank all those people who were part of my past, because without them, I wouldn't have been such a miserable human being. I wouldn't have suffered as much. And then power coaching with Mind Kinetics would never have been born, because I developed it for me first, for me to heal. And then people started to knock on my door and say, Betska, my God, you've really changed. What are you doing? So I would explain. And they would say, well, can you help me? I say, well, okay, why don't you come? We can try. So all of a sudden my calendar got pretty full with people wanting help. And Lisa, it's so funny because I was coaching these people and I wasn't charging them. I didn't even know I could charge them. Until one day my husband John said, Betska, we could really use the money because you're not out there speaking anymore, for now, and, we could really use some money. So maybe you should start charging. So I did. I charged a paltry $35 a session back then, and but it got me going. And then people said, well, can you teach us how to do this? In other words, can you teach us to be coaches? And that's where it all started. And now, of course, we run an international business. So my goodness, my story took a long time, Lisa, but it's an important story, yeah?
Well, it is an important story because of course, genius, what did I heard somebody say, your mess becomes your message. And
wow,
so I
that's
think some
cool.
of the most genius ideas that have come in the world have come from the biggest messes, the biggest trauma. And I know you didn't mention it really yet. We haven't talked about it yet, but I know that your passion for what you've done, your experience and the experience that you've had with your clients, and all that you have learned about the scientific process, because one of the things you didn't mention in there, but I know as one of your trained coaches, is that as you did your research, as you did your own personal self-discovery and personal development, new research was being published in the areas of epigenetics and by Dr. Bruce Lipton, as well as molecules of emotion by Dr. Candace Pert, that were confirming the research that you did, which now you have documented in your own book, your latest book called The God in Coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I just
Key to a happy life.
Yeah, The Key to a Happy Life. And I'd really like to go to that for a moment, because in your book, The God in Coaching, Key to a Happy Life, you state, when science and spirit merge in the coaching process, miracles happen. We achieve corporate wellness, loving families, and a healthier planet. Inner peace brings world peace. So you've devoted many pages of this book to the science behind our behaviors. Would it be possible for you to summarize that for our guests today?
Yeah, and then later perhaps we can go into the detail, because the detail is so fascinating to me. To me it's magical. But as we said, coaching is really about asking questions. You know, when you're sitting across from someone, you are asking them, different types of questions to help them raise their awareness, to raise their consciousness, so that they can make better choices for whatever you are coaching them on. Now, the majority of coaching models today are still primarily left brain oriented. In other words, the coaches ask questions which elicit a logical left brain answer. But the mind and body have so much more capability. And this is where an understanding of mind, body, and spirit as a coach is very valuable. PCMK, the model I've developed, is a whole brain-mind model. In every session, the client uses the left brain, the right brain, their conscious mind, their subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind. The superconscious meaning our highest power, our genius, if you will, our God self, depending on whatever you want to call it. It's the, taking us to our place of genius. And every session, in every session, the client experiences these left brain, right brain, alternating types of questions, which are scientifically engineered to come up with solutions to a problem or a challenge. And then, in addition, as you've said, here at CLI, the research we've done is so extensive, and we combine our knowledge of cell biology, Bruce Lipton, of course, being very famous. I totally love that man. For the listeners, if you wish to read some of his books, Biology of Belief was his first famous one. It won the 2006 Science Book Award. So you can just look him up, Lipton, as in Lipton tea, yeah? And then Candace Pert with neuroscience and her first book, Molecules of Emotion. And then quantum physics. I didn't study that through anyone else other than through my meditative process. And, of course, that's the best way. And I kept getting all of this wisdom about how to use quantum physics in the coaching process. And I tell you, it's so miraculous, because the coach doesn't have to use their logical left brain to decide which coaching model they're going to use with the client that day, because the whole system is designed so that, it's quantum physics that's selecting the coaching methodology with the highest frequency that will best suit the client's issue or goal for that day. And then, of course, there's mind kinetics, which is the science that I have developed, which means basically, taking your potential energy and turning it into kinetic energy or action. So at CLI, we've combined all of these things to coach people to achieve whatever they wish to achieve. It's very sophisticated. It's very advanced. And as we go through the program today, I would love to give an example of a coaching client and how sophisticated it is, and how mind kinetics is used in that whole process. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, Lisa.
Well, then maybe let's get a little bit more specific, because in your book, The God in Coaching, Dr. Ray Carr, who's the watchdog of the coaching and mentoring industry, has even stated right on the inside flap that PCMK is probably the most revolutionary and effective model of coaching to have been developed in the past 10 years. So that's a wow testimonial. Is it possible for you now maybe to talk more specifically about PCMK, how it is tying in with this cell biology and all this research, how it's helping achieve permanent positive change, and perhaps some stories that demonstrate that? Because I know just from past experience, because I've been doing personal development for a long time, there's still a lot of experts in the field talking about thinking positive. Just think positive. Change your thoughts. And it seems like it's such an easy thing. Change your thoughts, change your life. And yet, no matter how I tried in the past to just change my thoughts, I love that word just, because I've heard it so many times, as if it's easy, when I knew that underneath the thoughts was a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling trapped. I would often get in an emotional charge before I even knew that's what it was called, and realize that conscious struggle to change my thoughts consciously and then will my mind and will my body to behave never worked for me for long. It wasn't until I started using these processes and going into that subconscious that I started to experience. I mean, even just this morning, I was doing a self-coaching, went into a deep subconscious pattern that was even deeper layer of something that you and I had coached on last week. The emotion was so huge, the release was so huge around this pattern that I've been struggling with for a while. I was in tears. I was sobbing for at least 10 minutes. I was so thankful that this finally had bubbled up to the surface in my subconscious. Just hugely powerful. And the release, like I feel 10 times lighter right now just talking to you. Could you be more specific about how this works?
Yes, and so this is quite a lengthy explanation, but by the way, Elisa, can we share with your guests the methodology that you used? Would that be okay?
What I used this morning was called the Brain Walk to Better Health. So
okay.
it revealed to me 3 deep subconscious patterns, and actually then the 4th one was the one that tied them all together. The 4th one, as soon as I realized it, it felt like my whole body opened up, and it was just a floodgate of trapped emotions came out. It was beautiful.
And the Brain Walk to Better Health, I'm sure your guests will appreciate knowing this. I developed it for people with disease or any kind of discomfort in their body, and we can literally zoom in with like laser lights and go into the cells and find out what is causing the disease or the discomfort in your body. I mean, that's amazing, right? You don't have to have, you can support it all with MRIs and X-rays and whatever you want, but, to see what's going on, but to actually find the root cause, the emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and physical causes of a disease will come out using the Brain Walk to Better Health. Like, how cool is that?
Oh, it was really cool.
Yeah. So people need to know that these tools are available to them so that they don't have to suffer anymore. All right, so I feel like I want to tell the story of Stephanie. And by the way, those of you who want to read many stories about how PCMK has helped lots of people around the world, in my book, The God in Coaching, The Key to a Happy Life, I have many stories, and they're delightful stories. And this one is of a young girl. First of all, the parents, the mother, said to me, and this was early on. This must have been, 1996, 97, somewhere in there, early on in my career. The mom said to me that she was wondering if I could coach her daughter. And she said her daughter is a mess, and she had taken her to see counselors and social workers and so on, and nothing had changed. And so I said, sure, I'll give it my best shot, right? And so Stephanie came. That's not her real name, by the way, but she walked into the coaching room. The mother was in the waiting room, and she stood there. Her hair was filthy dirty. It was like grease. You could feel like you could wring the grease out. Her clothes were very dirty, and I had to politely open the window because the smell from this child's body was more than I could bear. And she's making these animal sounds. And so I, invited her to sit down and asked her what she wanted to work on that day, and she said, well, what I really would like to work on is I can't keep my friends. Well, is it any surprise to you that she's not keeping her friends with her hair all greasy and her clothes so dirty. It looked like she would take her clothes off at night and put the same ones on for 2 or 3 weeks on end. That's how bad it was. And so we coached on her being friendless, if you will, and she was very happy in the end because we had unblocked some of her receptors, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then at the end, she said, Betska, when I come next time, can we work on something else very important to me? And I said, sure, honey. What would you like to work on? And she said, well, my mommy and daddy hate me. They don't love me. I said, oh, dear. Are you sure? She said, oh, yes, I'm very sure. I said, all right. Well, would it be okay if I invited your mother to come into the coaching room, and you can go into the waiting room? Would it be okay if I shared this with your mom? Because the child's 11. I forgot to mention that she was 11. And so they traded. The mom came in, and I shared with the mother. I said, your daughter, Stephanie, tells me that she thinks that you hate her, that you don't love her. And the mom said, absolutely. We hate her. We don't like her. I mean, Betska, look at her. She smells. She looks ugly. Her room is terrible, She's doing lousy in school. I mean, we just can't stand her. She tries to come and give us a hug, and we won't even give her a hug. So I said, all right. Stephanie has asked me to work with her next time to coach her on that. And I really suggest that you also come for coaching on that issue and whatever else you wish. And so long and short of it was that Stephanie came, and within 3 to 4 weeks of coaching, so 3 or 4 sessions, Stephanie washed her hair, and it was blonde. I couldn't even tell it was blonde. She was gleaming blonde. The grease had gone. Her clothes were clean. She had a smile on her face. I didn't have to open the window anymore. And now this child has graduated, of course, from university and has an outstanding life. The mother, and what I also wanted to share with you is this is actually a whole family transition, because the father was an engineer, and he was unemployed for 8 years. He couldn't get a job. They were on social assistance. They had their own garden. They were just barely making it, and people were trying to help them out and so on, which was great. But I had, again, 3 or 4 coaching sessions with the dad, and he got a job, and I believe he still has it today. Brilliant man. He was just, in his subconscious mind, he did not love himself. He was feeling like he was a victim. Same with the mother, same with the child, the whole family, except for the son, who was younger. Those 3 were running the same patterns in their subconscious of mind that, I am not great, I am not wonderful, I'm ugly, I'm not smart, nobody loves me. They were basically stuck in this deep hole and couldn't get out. And by the time I'd finished with them, the whole family was succeeding in whatever they wanted to succeed in. So why was it that the social workers and the other helping professionals were not able to help Stephanie? The reason is because chances are they did not have the coaching methodologies or the therapeutic models. Of course, therapy and coaching is very different. Therapy, they go in and they spend an awful long time in the past. With coaching, you don't. Coaching is about the present and the future. However, we can go into the past very briefly to find out when a recurring behavior began. So that's what we do in PCMK. When needed, we will go in and find out when a pattern, an unconstructive pattern, like Stephanie's, of animal sounds and not cleaning her hair and her clothes being dirty and not doing well in school. These are all patterns, right? We continue to do them day after day after day. That, find out the root cause of that. And we did. Same with the mom, same with the dad, and cleaned that whole family up, and away they went. And God bless them. Wonderful people. Okay.
So, Betska, this brings to mind then, because I really want my listeners to understand what is really going on at the cellular level, at that physiological level, that prevents us from having permanent positive change, and what can be done, or what is happening in the PCMK process that is leading to permanent positive change.
Right. Thank you. So what I'd like to do is first share about the vital components of PCMK so the listeners can hear why it is so powerful, and then I'll explain the whole thing around the receptors, because I believe there's time for us to do that. But let's say you have someone with a disease. Now, since the dawning of the age of genetics, we have been programmed to accept that we are subservient to the power of our genes. Everybody believes that, yeah? Through all the science around genetics, of course, genetics is no longer, we don't talk about genetics when we talk about the coaching process. We talk about epigenetics, above the genes, so that our coaches and our clients know that, no, they are not subservient to the power of their genes. They are in control of their lives. So when you look at heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, these are increasing at alarming rates, not just in Canada and the U.S., everywhere. Now, most countries in the world where, they have, specific eating habits and belief systems and so on, that is just, those are rising. They're soaring at alarming rates, so it really disturbs me. And if a person's mom had cancer, then that person's subconscious programming is going to say, I'm going to get that cancer as well. Okay? This is how we think. When we grow up in a household, for example, that is poverty-ridden, then our subconscious mind, the children grow up to believe that they too will live in poverty. Or if the parents were alcoholics, the children automatically are programmed in their subconscious mind to say, I'm going to be an alcoholic too. Some of them get out of it on their own, thank God, but others need processes like PCMK, for example. Marriage failure is the same idea. My parents had a lousy marriage, therefore my subconscious mind is saying, I also am going to have a lousy marriage. Or let's take a look at another coaching situation where a female comes in for coaching. The husband works 12-hour days. Paul, the husband, is not at home to help raise the family. Catherine's exhausted from looking after the baby herself. It's a pattern, okay? Everybody getting that? This is a pattern. They're doing it day after day after day. They're not getting out of that unconstructive pattern. She won't say anything to Paul for fear that he will blow up and leave her because he has a vile temper. So the PCMK's vital components include, and there are many, but I'll just give a few for your listeners, just for their understanding of the depth of what we do. The coach will ask left brain and right brain, conscious, subconscious, and superconscious questions, as I mentioned earlier. So, for example, the coach could say to Catherine, well, what is the most difficult or scary part for you about this situation? She said, well, the most scary part is my husband's going to leave me. Here I am with a baby. I don't have my body back. I haven't worked in 6 years, because, we've got 2 children, and what would I do? So there's a tremendous amount of fear inside of her. The coach could then, and that is a right brain subconscious question. And then what is your main concern? This is usually purely a left brain logical type of question. Well, she would say, well, I'm not important enough to Paul. There's some emotion in there, but she's logically decided that she's not important enough to Paul for him to want to be a part of the family because he works 12 hours a day. And then the coach could say, okay, what is bothering you deep down at a heart level? This goes into the right hemisphere and into the subconscious mind. And she thinks for a moment, and what's really bothering her deep down at a heart level is, well, if he's working 12-hour days and he doesn't really care about me, he doesn't really love me. Wow. So this is important for all of this emotion to come out. And then the coach might also bring in the universal laws. We call them universal truths that we all grew up with, like birds of a feather flock together. I must love myself before I can love others. The law of karma. And in this case, in Catherine's case, she might learn the law of choice. That she needs to make the choice to have a heart-to-heart conversation with Paul. Otherwise, they're going to stay in that same pattern. Then the coach might bring in spiritual values. In PCMK, we have about 76 of them, like self-love and honesty and faith. And, she might say, well, I'm not receiving love from Paul, and I'm not giving him faith, or I'm not being honest with him. you see. So bringing those values into the conversation is very important, because we know from a power coaching perspective, a PCMK coaching perspective, that if there's something going wrong in someone's life, it means that they are not aligned with some of these specific spiritual values. We find out where the misalignment is, and we bring them back into alignment. And some of the listeners might say, well, if you're coaching Catherine, do you need to coach Paul? Well, might not. And there's a very quick story that my coach Jan had, where she was coaching a woman whose husband was an alcoholic. The husband never came for coaching, but the woman complained bitterly about her husband being an alcoholic, and just session after session complained about it. Again, he never came for coaching, but she did. And after several coaching sessions, she felt much better, and he stopped drinking. Okay? So we, in our own energy fields, can affect the people around us. Read about that in my book. There are so many incidents about that, so many stories. So all of the listeners must understand that when we change our aura, when we change our beliefs, we can affect the people dramatically around us. The other thing we can use with PCMK is color. We use color to find the root cause. We will actually zoom in to the cells. The client zooms in to their cells to find out where a pattern began. And this is extremely powerful. And then we might write belief systems with the client, such as, I, Catherine, now love myself so much that I openly share my truth feelings and my thoughts, and Paul and I feel safe doing so. And then in Catherine's subconscious mind, because she doesn't feel safe, this new belief system will make her feel very safe. And these new belief systems replace the negative thoughts in the subconscious mind. So now, let's go into the actual science around that. Every human being has between 50 and 100 trillion cells in our body. Some cells look after the glands, some look after the muscles, some after the organs, and the cells really possess a uniquely tuned receptor protein for every environmental signal that they need to read. So therefore, as I said, there will be receptor proteins uniquely tuned to look after digestion, some after muscle contractions and other bodily functions. And so let's say, for example, in Catherine's case, where the bottom line was she felt that her husband didn't love her, okay? So taking her into her cells, she would probably, the cells would probably be in the throat area, which is the throat chakra, or the turquoise blue chakra. And she would probably go in there, and she might have one or two or many cells in charge of, my husband doesn't communicate with me and he doesn't love me. Well, at a cellular level, let's go into that cell. Everybody's seen a cell in biology somewhere in their school days. Every cell has a nucleus, and then it has membranes. It has a membrane. It's like a transparent membrane. Sitting on the membrane are these receptor proteins. And they are in charge of letting energy, letting food into those cells. They're in charge. Sitting on the receptor protein are antennas. And these antennas can read energy fields. And our biological behavior can be controlled by invisible forces, including thought, as well as it can be controlled by physical molecules like antibiotics, that sort of thing. So, but the focus is on the praise, including thought, right now. So if Catherine believes that her husband doesn't love her and he's not communicating, then that's her belief. And her belief is in her subconscious mind, which is in the electromagnetic field of the receptor protein. And we also know from Candace Pert that these receptors have constricted because of some emotional event. So something from childhood, maybe Catherine watched her mother being abused by her dad. Maybe her dad was also a lousy communicator, and maybe he worked long hours, and her mother had to do all the work around the house and was exhausted at the end of the day. Yeah? So we never know where we're going to take these patterns on. But with PCMK, what happens is that the Power Coach, because we're using quantum physics to select the right coaching methodology and the development of proper belief systems, those antennas start to vibrate on the receptor, and then the receptor will deconstrict or open and allow the oxygen and glucose and phytochemicals and the energy to come into the body of the cell. And in the cell are what we call effector proteins that can then take action for the client. So you have this receptor-effector process, and it is wonderfully explained in Bruce Lipton's book, Biology of Belief, and his other books since then. Now, the other piece I'd like to share with you is that when the cell starts to get fed with physical food, the cell starts to get nourished, and it's been undernourished for years. So the client starts to get clarity because the cell is now functioning at a level that it's supposed to be functioning at. And then at the same time, the chakra, which is the throat chakra in this particular case, because the cells are the receptors are no longer constricted, the chakra in which the cells reside also open, and in from the electromagnetic field or the superconscious, which is around the body of the client, the solutions to Catherine's problems flood in. And it could be any kind of a solution. It's up to her on what she brings in, but it's usually something that is mind-blowing for the client. So bottom line is that we are like computers. Our cells are programmable. We are the programmer. We can program whatever we want into our cells. We can change our belief systems, change our lives at a cellular level. How did I do on that, Lisa?
Well, that's good because we're coming into our last about 6-7 minutes of the call, and I wanted to add something to that, just my own personal story. As I said, Betska, when I first came to coach training, first thing I realized is that I was there to heal myself. And I remember you telling me the story of your life and how anxious you were to just open up your subconscious mind and apply a vacuum cleaner. And I believe, I went home and I did the same thing. I started hiring you. I started hiring your husband, John. And shortly thereafter, my oldest daughter had a very traumatic emotional incident. And it seemed, and in that moment I looked and I could see how she had been attracting the same type of incident over and over in her life. It was a reoccurring pattern, and each time was getting more severe, to the point where she was debilitated. She had to drop out of her college courses. She couldn't get out of bed. She couldn't lift her backpack to walk to school. It was very stressful, very traumatic. And I wasn't at a stage yet in my coaching training that I could do these subconscious processes, and I was too close emotionally to the situation. And I remember asking her if she would be open to working with you and perhaps seeing what that subconscious pattern would be, because I knew that somewhere along the line she had experienced something that of course when we have a belief system, we continue to invite things into our life to give us evidence of that. It was so amazing to me when she did that one session with you where she went into the subconscious, how within, the next day she got out of bed and had a shower. And the next day she was moving a little more. And within a short period of time, she was back to full mobility. And so much so, and so moved by the process that she herself began coach training, because she saw how significant it was. I remember telling her, when you sometimes go into these subconscious patterns, the release of the pattern can be so strong it feels like an out-of-body experience. She experienced that. She continues to. So do I. So it's really amazing. So, Betska, as we close this interview, I want to thank you so much for sharing part of yourself today, this journey. Two-part question to end. What do you believe Coaching and Leadership International and PCMK is here to offer to the world? And as you end with that, perhaps a short thing for our guests on how they could connect with you in regards to your book or some of your products, or perhaps if they're interested in coach training or working with a coach for this type of innovative coaching, how could they be connected with you?
Thank you, Lisa. Well, and connected with you because you're an amazing coach yourself. So I invite them to contact you as well. What does Coaching and Leadership International offer? Well, we have multiple business units. So one of them we've just talked about is coach training. We also take all this knowledge and wisdom that we've acquired over the years into the corporate world because there's a stat, and I don't know whether it's still a good stat, but at the time it kind of shocked me that 50% of all U.S. corporations have been sued by their employees. So even if it's, today, that was about 8 years ago, but, even if it's 30 or whatever today, it's still a lot. It means that people are unhappy in the corporate world. So we've got some fantastic corporate programs where we go in and we teach people how to self-coach, and we teach them how to use power coaching with mind kinetics, the senior leaders how to, if they're stuck in whatever they're stuck in, to get unstuck, whether it's relationships or business building or, how to communicate with the board, whatever the case may be. So our corporate programs are absolutely dynamite. They're very enriching for leaders with respect to their competencies, and for the staff as well to learn how to engage their whole brain mind for innovative thinking. I mean, that is so powerful. And then, of course, we do individual coaching, and the other love I have in our company is the development of personal development products. So we have the Brainwalk Genius Edition. People can buy it and keep it on their dining room table so that the whole family, they can, get rid of a challenge in 10 minutes, right, 5 to 10 minutes by the whole process that we've developed with the Brainwalk. It's won multiple awards, and there's no wonder because it's totally brilliant. And also some Noble Life card games. I've developed those, 48 games for families and companies to play to help them develop more of an advanced thinking process for whole brain thinking and whole life results, and valuable tool games for leaders, and I've written many books and developed many profiles. And so basically your guests can go to www.coachingandleadership.com, and they can look at our various buttons on the website. The CLI store has all the different products that they can purchase if they like. There's also a self-coaching button there if they want to go and do some self-coaching. They can choose a coach. If they want to hire a coach, there's a button right there. For coach training, they can click on coach training. We have free webinars every Wednesday to really explain the PCMK process. We encourage couples to come and learn this so they can coach each other to have more profound marriages. We encourage all political leaders, all corporate leaders, managers, everybody in the world should learn PCMK because, including teenagers, I taught our daughter to go into her subconscious mind when she was 5, and she is a genius today. There's no question about it. She just graduated in honors biochemistry from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. And so that's that. And so we bring a lot to the world. And in my book on page 9, there's a model for inner peace, which brings world peace. And if I was to summarize CLI's mission in the world, it's really this: to create a safer world for children of all species, for human children and animals. In there we talk about mind, body, and spirit mastery. Really thinking positively, using power coaching with mind kinetics to clean out the stuff that's stopping you from succeeding in your subconscious mind. Body mastery, try to eat a non-violent diet, try to eat a plant-based diet, like a vegetarian, vegan. And spiritual mastery, meditation, make sure that you're meditating every single day. And then you'll be feeling more and more peaceful inside, and with that you can then bring more peace to the world. I believe, Lisa, if everybody did that, we no longer would have war. We would indeed have peace, heaven on earth.
Well, Betska, thank you so much for joining me and our guest today talking about the mind-body-spirit connection to permanent positive change. I'd like to thank everyone who came on the call today for joining us and giving us your energy and your attention and your love. And I wish you all a peaceful day. And, of course, Betska gave you how to connect with her. You can connect with me at ultimateclarity.com. And I wish you all peace, and thank you all for coming today. Thank you, Betska.
Thank you, Lisa. God bless. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.